Hello. Hello, my friends. What is up, everybody? What is up? Mr. Coffee has submitted a game for tonight's stream. Eric the Red, Big Dummy, Yabadis, Move 11, and Schumacher. Alright. Thank God it's Friday. Almost Friday. What's up, Asterbait? We're hosting our Art of Analysis stream. Game analysis of subscriber games. First off, it's Mr. Coffee. Mr. Coffee's not here. Maybe we should wait. I don't know if he's showing up for the stream or not. I know Mr. Coffee has a job, which is tough. I have a job too, but at least I work for myself. Alright, if you're gonna slave, it's better to slave for yourself. Mr. Coffee versus Rickstag. Eric the Red, Big Dummy, Ubadis, Chapter 5 by Move 11, and Schumacher. So, is anyone else in the building? Gary Kasparov, I've seen both in myself and my competitors how satisfaction can lead to lack of vigilance. Satisfaction. Yeah, I never want to have any satisfaction. Chess isn't a game of speed. Alright, I agree. Alright, well, we're going to start anyway with the Mr. Coffee game. You can always watch the VOD. D4. Mr. Coffee playing white. This is, okay, this is an online game. On game. Online game 10-0. Rated rapid tournament. I recommend playing, longer time controls, but okay, it's a 10-0 tournament. So D4, D5, Knight F3, Knight F6, E3. This is Mr. Coffee's, one of his favorite openings. Call system, Colle. Mr. Coffee is in the house. Alright, you're here just in time, sire. We're getting started. So, against the Colle, black has lots of different options. I think C5, probably my favorite. You didn't realize you were first. I don't know, if I put them in order or not. Sometimes they're slightly out of order, depending on different factors. But you probably were the first for this week. So, I feel like C5 is my preference, but from black's perspective, it kind of depends on, your style. So he plays bishop G4. E6 is a little bit on the passive side. Black can play G6. As I've told Mr. Coffee, I think you need to be able to play C4 against certain setups. So the question now, let me look at this. The question now after bishop G4, same thing. This is a strong move that I think it takes out all the steam out of stuff like bishop D3. This pin is really, really aggressive by black. So I think if you play something like bishop E2, it's very solid, but you're basically playing black. So I think that your choices are basically, passive moves being black or trying to take advantage of black somehow. And the only ways to do that would be H3, like you played, trying to gain the bishop pair, or C4. This is very fundamental, undermining black's center. What can you do? So Mr. Coffee goes with H3, And if black plays bishop takes f3, he's made a concession. The minor exchange. Mr. Coffee wins the exchange after bishop takes f3. Well, I mean, the critical question really for black, I think, is like, how good is bishop h5? Mr. Coffee, you know this variation, right? Now you have a choice. You've pushed his bishop off this diagonal, and you can still do c4. Or you can shift gears to the hyper-aggressive g4, going after that bishop pair. But Mr. Coffee, you had a game like this, didn't you? A long time ago that we looked at. And there was something to do with h4. I remember you having that before. Don't call me sir. And no falling asleep during the stream. So, Mr. Coffee, it's a good question. I mean, g4 is more aggressive. But I think that c4 is good as well. Does this like transpose to a Slav after c6? Yeah. It transposes. It's kind of... It's a little like a London system, but the bishop's on... It's a Tory reversed or whatever. Basically a kind of Slav. It's an e3 Slav with bishop g4, h3, bishop h5. Alright. But this did not happen. So Mr. Coffee's opponent played bishop takes f3. Yeah, and the problem with this type of position is that your queen gets dragged out, like kind of out of position on f3. I hate playing against the Slav too. One player actually played g takes f here. It's creative. I'll give him that. Queen takes f3. Now black to play. It's like... Reminds me a little bit of the French. But if you think about it, Mr. Coffee, you're actually playing the black side of the Tory attack with like an extra move here. I mean, black would love to get in like e5 if he could. So like theoretically, I mean, e6 is like, I give up on trying to play e5. He could play knight on bd7. I don't know what the problem is with this. c4. I guess the problem is that ultimately you have to play e6 anyway. e6. Gelashvili game. What's the big deal? What is the big deal here? cd5, ed5, knight c3, c6. What's the problem? We transpose back into another position. I think it's actually okay for black. Just an unusual move order. Alright, but e6 is the main move. Can black play c6? The answer is yes. I mean, I'm not in love with the symmetrical structure, but I mean, his knight isn't great on d7. This is playable for you. But it's like very hard. It's very hard to do anything with the bishop pair, you know, when you have this type of pawn structure. Your only break is like e4. So I thank you, Spectacular Camel, for resubbing 38 months. I like Mr. Coffee keeping the tension. You know, there's no reason to give up the tension here. But the game continuation is e6, c4, c5. Baby. Wow, that's a new move, according to the Opening Explorer, and really, really aggressive. Does anybody know the problem with this move? I mean, if there's a problem with this move, I suspect me. Yeah, but I mean, c5 creates a much more sharp position. You know, black's not going to be as solid on the light squares. On the positive side, he will get to move his knight to a good square on c6. But what about like bishop e5 check? D takes c? You mean, yeah, your other d takes c. Sumahair's drinking too much beer again. Your other right, c takes d? Exactly. And this check here might be a useful move. You know, it's what it is. It's actually like, it looks like it's transposing to another opening. Like, Mr. Coffee's suddenly playing the Rogozin, like with black. It's a good Rogozin. So instead he plays knight c3. Okay, this is complicated, but say you take here. If he takes here, you take here. Like, who eats the most pawns first? Probably white is like a step ahead. I would assume this is good for white. So he has to kind of recapture. And then you have time to do like bishop e5 check or what have you. You know, whatever you want to do here. I mean, I feel like white is a tiny bit better. So c5 is too aggressive, but it might be playable. It's very aggressive. My problem with knight c3 is that does he have this capture here? I guess it's not a problem. You can always play like bishop e3. Acerbate's favorite square. But black to move. G, go, go, go. Oof. How do you read chat? King, king. Pair of kings. I mean, from where I stand, black's supposed to play knight c6 here, putting pressure on the weak pawn on d4. This is a no-brainer. You know, I mean, I don't know how we're going to follow up, but black's actually glad he has a good square for his knight and attacks d4. You know, actually, come to think of it, there is an interesting possibility, like c takes d, knight takes d4, queen d3. The position could become very sharp. Mr. Coffee can put pressure on the knight on d4, and then the white squares are a little bit weak. So, you know, perhaps there's something to this bishop b4, you know, actually. Maybe, but on the other hand, white can counter with bishop g5. So I'm not sure. I guess bishop b4 is not a bad move. White doesn't have check on a4. Now Mr. Coffee, I didn't expect this. He did like an acerbate on the other side. Mr. Coffee here decided with white to play c5, but I don't see how you have time for that, you know. Your king is in the center of the board. It's a queen pawn game. You know, he's one move away from castling. He's pinning your, you know, pinning you with bishop b4. I feel like we got to get out of here as fast as possible. So bishop g5. You're lucky that this is protected, man, you know, by the queen. If he tries anything fancy like queen a5, you can just ignore it and play bishop takes f6. I feel like that's a huge thing in your favor in this position. You don't have to respond to like a threat against your pinned knight. This is a really tough position. Like, you don't necessarily want to waste the tempo and play like bishop d3 and let him maybe take or something. So I don't know. It looks like this is the only really good move to me. A3 is too slow. C5 is too slow. What about taking? I mean, he could even take with the queen. So I'm pretty much convinced that this is your move, bishop g5. What do you guys bet? Yeah, it's up there. I'm surprised though. A3 is doing pretty well. I would have judged A3 as being too slow. But it would kind of force him to fix your pawn structure. The champagne of beers. I drink beer from a wine glass. I drink wine from wine glasses too, though, so you never know. I mean, I'm keeping people guessing. I like to keep them guessing. Always keep them guessing. Mr. Coffee, so bishop g5. This is a huge mistake. You don't have time for this. I mean, and anyway, he's going to break up your pawn chain with b6, so... I don't know, man. I don't really like it. Do you know what this reminds me of? The game I lost to Lambit Ol, where he played like queen d7, bishop a5, bishop d8. And then the bishop like came back to a5 and I resigned when it came back to a5. When Alexander Ivanov said like everyone saw bishop a5 except for you. But it's not like you're sitting there with the bishop normally sitting on d8, you know. He has this bishop on d8 on like move 12. So from his perspective, I mean, his bishop's not trapped, right? If you play a3, he can retreat back to a5. But I mean, if I'm black here, I'm castling, dude. There's no... You know, the only other move I would like consider would be maybe knight e4. Trying to put pressure on this pin. Playing knight c6. Attacking your pawn on d4, come to think of it. Now you probably have to play bishop b5. And you're going to have... Yeah, I mean, c5 is a really bad move, dude. This is an extremely bad move. But I'll give Mr. Coffee a break. He's not really used to these structures yet. But this move is a catastrophe. I mean, it makes c5 look like a minor inaccuracy. Why would black like just voluntarily exchange on c3 unprovoked? This move is a disaster. Why pin something if you're just gonna like trade it off the next move for no reason? Now you've got a major decision to make. Like, which way do you want to take, with the queen or with the pawn? I'm really not sure, man. You know? This is a tough recapture, because I think both moves are viable and very different. I'm kind of leaning toward this, but he will break up your pawn chain later on with b6. I like reinforcing my center with the pawn. He thought it was too funky. I mean, I like my anchored, you know, central pawn on d4. If he tries anything fancy like this, you have check. And that looks kind of sketchy for black. I mean, he can't play this because of c6. Winning a queen or a piece or something. There's also the possibility of your bishop coming out here. So he probably would castle. You have a great position. I mean, bishop g5, knight on bd7, bishop d3. I guess black could, you know, eventually crack your pawn structure and then try to exploit this backward pawn here. No, it's not that simple, you know. I mean, it's possible that black's doing okay. But anyways, queen takes... We got to worry about knight e4. Uh-oh. Now what are you going to do? You're going to play, like... How are you going to stop queen a5 check? Are you going to play queen e3, queen a5 check, king d1 or something? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is a problem, man. I mean, queen a5 check, this is too awkward. So you play queen c2. Now, why doesn't black play this? Good advice from Mr. Coffee. After queen a5 check, you have to play bishop d2. He's going to swap this out. You take. You're a little bit better here. But he has another move. Knight c6 attacking d4. And I'm getting kind of nervous, boys and girls. Mr. Coffee, do we have a problem here? This looks sus, man. Knight c6 is a problem. How do you defend that pawn? Oh, man. There's no really good way to defend the pawn, which makes me... Yeah, it makes me think your queen move is wrong, too. Now he still has knight c6. And now on this, he plays what, pawn takes? And your d pawn is gone, so you have to take on e4. And then after, like, queen takes d4, you're not better. You're underdeveloped. But black here, if he keeps wasting time, you might actually get a good game. F5 is still not a bad move. I mean, the main problem is, like, you can't play f3 because of knight g3. That would be a serious problem. Oh, there's also queen h4, by the way. Yeah, that's kind of worse. No. Alright, so you didn't castle here. Interesting. Bishop f4 stops f4. Look, I'm not a huge fan of f5. I went on board saying he should have played knight c6. This is a double threat, by the way. Attacking this and attacking this. This is a freaking good move or not? Bishop f4. I don't know. He still has knight c6. Damn, dude. Yeah, you're still in trouble. You might have f3 here. That would be pretty crazy if you could play f3. But all hell would break loose. I mean, knight takes d4, g5. I don't even know where to start with all the possibilities. No, this is bad. What about sacking a pawn or something? I mean, what are you going to do with this position? Bishop here? This is bad, man. You're in big trouble. Coffee got burned. Yeah, I mean, truthfully, you had no time to even... You know what I think you have to do? I think you have to actually take this, Mr. Coffee. I don't know what else to do, man. Maybe you literally have to take it, but it looks bad either way. You might have some chances here, but you're worse. His knights are very strong. This knight c6 is extremely strong. Alright, let's see. Maybe he's got more than we thought. Queen a4, nice move. Mr. Coffee stringing it together. Hanging in there tactically. He's got e5. Maybe e5. Bishop e5. Knight e5. Pawn e5. Knight takes c5. Queen d4. Knight takes e3. Queen d3. f4. Anybody's game. So Queen a4 was a good move. Yeah, this is the first game. And I don't think that Mr. Coffee's opponent is, supposed to be trading queens here. I would suppose black should consider the ultra-violent h5. Or g5 if you prefer. Some call it g5. I just call it h5. I don't know why. It's been a long day. The problem is okay, well, where do you put it? h2, I guess. This is a very sharp position. I mean, black might play f4, shutting you down. I don't know what the eval is. Plus 1.6 for black. So let's see the previous position if we're going to cheat and see what the engine says. I missed queen f6. Coffee is burned. Yeah, dude. Yeah, you're toast here. If you castle knight c6, let's see. Man, you're hanging on by the skin of your teeth in this position. f3, knight takes d4. You have queen a4 there. Oh my god. And you win a piece, or 2 pieces for a rook. You're so lucky that you're not lost here. Apparently this is even playable. Oh my god. Yeah. So you were too slow. But I think, from my perspective, it starts with a3. Alright, bishop f4 here. You got to get the hang of these positions. But black messed up, hugely messed up. He gave Mr. Coffee an endgame with 2 bishops, and now the f3 will kick this knight out of e4. Black just destroyed his own position. Now we have very good control of e5. We can get the king up in time to protect this base of our pawn chain. e6 is weak, but I think here Coffee has to carefully evaluate what's going on with this pawn on d4. Is knight c4 really a threat? I mean, you played b3, but I don't know, man. I don't think that knight c4 is really a threat. If you play, for example, king d2 and he plays knight c4, you just play king here. And I think, he's got some problems. This is a crushing advantage now. White is clearly better. His knights are getting kicked out. So b3 was too hesitant. This is a problem. And black needs to play actively now. So maybe e5? I guess it's not going to work. Okay, he played h6. It's just a ridiculous move. I thought maybe g6, protect the pawn and try to play e5, but he's got a lot of weaknesses. So bishop e3 gets the job done. And black is now slightly worse. Maybe more than slightly. Yeah, man. I don't know. Mr. Coffee, where are we going to put our king, dude? I don't have a problem with a3 necessarily. But I think first of all, you need to sort out where you're going to put your king. This is the logical choice, I think, on d2. It's on a closed file. He has no, knights coming into these outposts. You connect your rooks. You bring like one rook here. You try to bring pressure there. So I don't love castles. g5. And now g4. g4 might be a good move. But I was thinking like, mostly I want to focus on this. No, I mean, I think focusing on the weakness on e6 would be... There's a couple of plans. Focusing on this weak pawn here. Mr. Coffee's on the right track on the queen side. I think our majority, this majority can win the game. But there doesn't always have to be like an epic plan. First of all, Mr. Coffee made mistakes. This king should definitely stay, if it's possible, the king should stay in the center. The king is it's an end game, And if you want to open up the king side, it might even be better that these lines are, usable. He's just kind of like trying to hold his opponent at bay. I don't like what black's doing necessarily either. But he needs to play e5 now. It looks like he's just going to try to blockade maybe. This is a good move. This is a good move. h5 looks sort of stupid, to be honest. But maybe eventually black could actually get something going on the h-file. It doesn't seem like a priority for black here, though. Is black going to get like an attack real quick down the h-file? I sort of doubt it. And he can play h5. Well, I was going to say he can play h5 whenever he wants to, but maybe this is better than I thought. Because Mr. Coffee has h4. Or does he? I mean, if h4 is a threat, then I get playing h5. But if h4 is not a threat, i.e. this pawn is tied, the knight is tying the bishop down to d4. If h4 is not a threat, then black shouldn't waste time on h5 yet. Yeah, this is basically a lot of mistakes by both sides. Mr. Coffee makes another mistake now. He has a huge pawn island here, and the plan is like a4, b5, create a passer and win the game. But he plays big b5, and that messed up his structure. I think this is a huge mistake. I mean, you've got to bring your rooks supporting the b pawn, and you're going to play a4, b5. You're huge here. You have a huge position. Clear advantage to white. Yeah, I mean, I think the h-file isn't where it's at. The plans are here and here. Queenside majority and backward pawn on e6. H-file maybe, This is a terrible mistake. White's lost all their pawn breaks. White has no pawn break anymore. The only pawn break is a6, which is going to be hard to get in. Now we do have 2 targets. Now you'd have to pay me to trade that off. No, I mean, it's like a winning plan for white. Think about it. You have a majority on the queen side. If you push these 3 forward against the 2, you know, you'll eventually create 2 against 1 and eventually create a passed pawn. But imagine like this or something. Here, king f7, I don't know, a4, black makes a move, whatever, b5, we start rolling. Look how dangerous these pawns are with a rook behind it. It's not necessarily winning, but I mean, I think that clearly, like, black is just trying to hang on. It's a fast game, though, you know, unfortunately. Mr. Coffee is probably mostly affected by the time control. I don't think he would make these mistakes in a longer time control as badly. Now we make a major concession. But I see this and this. And this. I see dead people. But, you know, the g5 pawn is pretty hard to attack. Honestly, like, it's sort of not a weakness because it's difficult to attack it. There is take the knight and, like, play here. But one attacker is easy to defend. I don't like this exchange, necessarily. Mr. Coffee has a passed pawn, but it's isolated. This is also a target. We may still be better. Now black played rook e7. So you're threatening rook b7 check. And what is white threatening? Rook b6? What about rook a8? First thing is always try to defend actively. Number 1. So like check, for example, I don't know, king f8, let's say. It's hard to use our dark square bishop. Now what do? We go for this pawn. Black can try to blockade, or he can play, you know, more actively, like takes, 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 and now takes. And this is a very strong protected passed pawn. Yeah, idea rook b4. I mean, this is definitely a huge move. Bishop e1. Getting that pawn to a5 would be a major boon. I don't think bishop takes e6 is the best move here. Rook eb1. You know, some other, like, more flexible move. The bishop's stronger than the knight, but you're still better. Still better. Oh, he chooses the active defense. Interesting. So black could have played rook a7, for example. Then, like you said, bishop e1. Rook has to retreat. a5. Black plays knight d7. The rook doesn't have to retreat. We can play a6, for example. And capturing that might be fatal. But I guess black has rook a7. So this kind of situation could arise. No, he has rook takes pawn. Okay. Rook takes pawn, knight b8. Rook c8. So we could get to like a crazy position. For example, knight takes a6. Rook takes a8. Rook takes a8. Is white winning? The answer is I'm not so sure. The problem is like white's bishop is so bad. It has no way to like enter the position. See, this is why I don't really like trading the light square bishop. Alright, anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but... So we get this ending anyway. Now Mr. Coffee made an interesting decision. He played rook e1. But frankly, like, he can exchange a rook with... And maybe it is a good move, because you're threatening rook c e6. Okay, here... And that's just a blunder. Ouch. So now we're getting into blunder territory. Black has to defend here with rook e7, it looks like. There's no other choice. And then rook here. And black's only move is like knight h7. Don't ask me if this is a winning position, because I have no clue. Mr. Coffee's better. He has a protected passed pawn. But his bishop's extremely dubious. It looks like the engine thinks it's a draw. Still. But his opponent just hung the pawn now. Mr. Coffee. Rook takes e6. Easily deciding the game. I mean, he's got a trade, and now you're up a pawn. That's a major blow. I mean, black losing that pawn on c6, he's probably losing after that. So he had to defend, he misses it, you traded, now he's still holding. And he should probably be able to hold this, but it's not that easy. If white's king can get over to the other side, all hell could break loose here. You know, maybe black has e5. So things could get interesting after e5. Black threatens a pawn smile with e4. Possibly. But he's also undermining this pawn on c5, essentially. So what do you do? If e5 takes, king e6, like, these pawns are gonna fall, man. I gotta believe white's better, but probably it's a draw. Yeah, I don't think like bringing the knight to h4 or anything is a big deal. Black really needs to get in e5 and break it up. But this is like a terrible mistake. It looks like. Maybe I'm overreacting. But I mean, it's passive, you know. Why play king d8 when you can play e5? Wow. Black's actually better after e5. Okay, equal. It's equal. He equalizes. The equalizer. Here's a tough call. But Mr. Coffee, I mean... Alright, dude. That's really annoying. Mr. Coffee, your rook's very powerful where it is. I mean, don't we have to consider rook a7? But this is still gonna happen, huh? You have rook a8 check here. This is really, really sharp. Seriously. This is a really important moment. Oh my god, the guy challenged me again. I blocked him and he re-challenged me. How can he do that? I didn't block him? Oh. I tried to block him and I didn't block him? Page not found. Was he challenging me with a different account or something? Dude, what is going on here? This guy is a troll. Why is page not found? Alright, now he's blocked. Do you know how rude it is to like keep challenging someone who declines your challenges? Play me now! Mr. Coffee, rook a7. Man. I'm kind of wondering if black could sack a piece here. Just hypothetically, alright? Bear with me, but like knight takes c5, b takes c5, I mean d takes, bishop takes, and then the plan is e5, e4. What does white do? Check. But your bishop's hanging. Bishop b4. It's tricky and it's hard to say like white is definitively winning. But it's a kind of desperate move. Okay, Mr. Coffee played rook b1. But it looks like, you know, you're not getting in there. So e5. Now, this is a really scary possibility. Black playing e4. Like playing for more than a draw. Like, what's happening after e4? I guess you could just hold on. You let him, you know, probably, I don't know, though. I'm afraid, man. Like, you're actually worse now after e4. Pawn takes, we both have, like, connected passed pawns. But you can't play d5, and his knight can come in and, like, blockade. I'm gonna blow your house down. I don't know, man. This is scary. You're like officially worse now. This game was epic. You're so lucky he took here. I mean, we keep saying Mr. Coffee's lucky, but he is. It's a terrible move. I mean, e4 and black is playing for the win, I guess. After this, it's like, he puts your bishop in a dream position. He can't take the pawn because of rook c1. No new challenges. I don't want to play duck chess. No, I'm here to analyze real chess today. Bishop takes d4. King c7. That rook is a bit of a problem. Rook sandwich. Maybe black should move the rook. No, he's got to protect the rook so he can threaten to take the pawn. Rook here. Mr. Coffee, are you ever going to use your king? Mr. Coffee's king has like cement boots on. Like, once it goes on g1, that's it, man. It's like glued to g1. Alright. Rook a6. So my instinct here is that even if you were down a pawn, it would probably be a draw. Like this, 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 and this. These pawns are pretty bad for him. He doesn't want to have like two of his pawns fixed on the dark squares that continually can get attacked by your bishop. But obviously you're not going to just jettison the pawn. I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, these pawns are a huge liability for black. I could see black losing this. So rook e1. Yes. Okay. And now if you're black, you're playing king c6 here, right? A hard endgame to play with 1 minute no increment. Black has 5 minutes though, and he took the bishop on e5. You're down to no time. I mean, he should play king here. Only black can really win here, objectively. But now, he has to attack f3. I think he should probably think about like checking you. Check. 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 Like, for example, check for something new and totally different. Check here. Rook takes. Rook takes here. King c6. Yeah, he could actually end up worse now. You checked his king all the way to the middle of the board, so that's no good. Or he checked your king all the way to the middle of the board. But I mean, now you're up a pawn temporarily. I guess he just goes to this pawn as fast as possible. Screw it. You know, that's his best chance. King takes c5. You've got to be careful, because his passed pawn is powerful and his king is in a good position. So I'm skeptical of rook e5. Again, your cement shoes. Time to kick off the cement shoes here, maybe. I'm not sure. This is tricky, though. There's no increment. It's sudden death. Get that doggy going. Yeah. White has a pawn, too. To be honest with you, I mean, my first instinct is that you should go to g8, you know, but usually a lot of my instincts are wrong. You want to get behind him, right? Now you have to move the rook again. You moved laterally. I was thinking. What was I thinking? I don't know, but you're really close to losing now. He blocks his own pawn with this move. So like king c3, rook takes f4, check, king f2, and d3. I don't know, man. You lost, I think. It looks like you're barely hanging on. g5 is okay. But I still think you should have gone to the back rank with your rook here. Apparently rook f5 was okay. This would have slowed him down, actually. But I feel like this is a decent move. Alright, this is still okay. This is okay. This is okay. This is getting more and more dangerous now. And this is a stupid move, like going in front of his pawn. After king c3, you're very close to lost. You have to be really, really careful there. But he gave you the pawn, and he like put his king in front of his pawn. So anyway, now it's a draw. Yeah, make sure you move your king as far away as possible, man. Mr. Coffee's like one of the only people I know with worse endgame technique than me. Seriously, why would you choose to put your king on h2 here rather than g2? Under what possible pretense would it be better to put your king on h2? Like, you want to be farther away from his passed pawn, or you want to make sure you get mated on the side of the board? It's all pre-move BS, really? Excuses, excuses. Now you're like winning. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. You're winning. It's like the buddy system though. Keep your pawns close together. Dude, this is a huge inaccuracy too. Mr. Coffee, seriously, your only winning move is king f6. You blow a full tempo here with rook takes d2, getting him closer. He has to go rook takes d1. This is the difference between a win and a draw according to the table base. It's that close that the only winning move is actually king f6. You help his king be a little closer. And now draw. Oops, he missed it. Oh my god. It was tough to see rook takes g7 with 3 minutes on the clock, man. He was trying to flag you. I get it, I get it. He was trying to flag you. He doesn't take the draw, like, on purpose. Oh, this is a disgrace, man. You're a disgrace to the chess world. He's a disgrace to the chess world. Check. But Coffee has 2 seconds left. He has to like check and take the guy's rook. Black wins on time. Nice. Nice job. Alright. I hope that was therapeutic for you to go through that game, man. It was a very interesting game, other than the silliness at the end. Even though you thought it was a stupid time scramble and stuff like that, you actually got to a really important, like, close theoretical position. That one tempo makes the difference between a win and a draw. Alright, so this is our next game. Eric the Red playing white. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6. Open Sicilian. Takes, knight takes. I have yet to see a good player who plays knight takes d4 in this position. I have yet to meet a good player who plays knight takes d4 in this position. I have a friend who did it in the Scotch, but I have yet to see someone do that. Maybe as some sort of novelty. Excel Poker's here! Because the problem is the queen is the piece that benefits the most from centralization. I mean, this is literally like the best possible position for a queen. The 4 central squares. This is not the math. Oh, the math teacher, no. Math teacher's different, Mr. Move 11. The math teacher is... I can't remember his name. Of course it was Italian. Math teacher played queen takes d4. That's different. This is better. This is like the math teacher's like dream, man. If you get queen on d4 with no knight c6, I mean, I guess Kamsky could play like e6, knight e7, knight c6. I mean, that's the only way. The only way that black can make this work somehow, I guess, you know, like knight c3, a6 with the idea of knight e7 and knight c6. So how does it work? As I said, like maybe as a novelty defense for black. What would you do here if you were white? Bishop f4, knight e7, possibly b5. Castle's queenside, and now b5 or knight c6. Grachkina, who's like one of the highest rated women in the world, right? actually had an opponent who did this. But something like that, anyway. Okay. Queen takes d4, d6. I don't know how bad is d6, objectively. It's funny that there's 2 games here. One, this guy I lost to, Nikolov. No relation to Brian Nikolov, but who we talked about the other day. So what's our best approach here with white? Someone played check. It's funny that 2 like good players played this with black. Recommending h4 here. The Stephen King's new chess engine. Alright. Just called it. Yeah, h4. I mean, I think the default move is knight c3. You know, you could transpose to a Richter Rouser, like knight f6, bishop g5, bishop d7. Castle's queenside. This could be a transposition. But I don't like bishop takes f6. It's not white's like most dynamic move. f4 or h4. It's like a good Richter Rouser for white. But anyway, rather than going through the, total explanation of how white's supposed to get an advantage here, let's just see what happened. Bishop e3. Alright, so probably not a bad move. It develops. I think we have to watch out for knight f6, knight g4. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not a big deal. But anyways, I think you're going to have to play knight c3 no matter what. I mean, the only thing you really might consider is of course c4, transposing to a Marazzi, I guess. But that doesn't feel like fully exploiting black to the max. Take it to the max, move 11. Alright, knight c3. I like that the best, because it's always going to go to c3. I mean, why is bishop e3 better than knight c3? You're going to play knight c3 no matter what. I hope. And you did, so it didn't really matter. Now black plays g6, so it's basically a dragon. Attempted dragon. See, there's another reason to play bishop g5 right there, I think you play knight c3, and I think he plays knight f6, and you play bishop g5 like Zuzulkin did. And now g6 is not an option. So you reduce his options. It's an option. It's a really ugly option, though. This is a horrible position for black. For like check. Wait, that's almost winning position. So I agree with this Grandmaster. Alright. So bishop e3 limits you a little bit more. He has the ability to play the dragon. Castles, bishop g7, and now, it almost looks like we're in a known position. After f3, you have e5 here? I don't know, I have to call, Zoltan Varga, get him on the line. It looks like something he would play. You have e5, but then there's this. Check. King f8. The problem being, of course, that like bishop d7 loses to queen takes g4. So black has to play like Tony Miles style dragon, king f8. But maybe it's good for black. Because what are you going to do about this? There's nothing to do. You're like... gonna have to find some sort of tactic. I mean, like sacrificing a queen, anyone? It'd be funny if this works somehow, but no, it's not happening. So I have 3 castles. So apparently you've transposed into... This looks like it looks like a kind of hyper-accelerated dragon with knight c3. I'll show you what I'm talking about. There's this variation with e4, c5, knight c3, g6, d4, takes, queen takes, knight f6. I've had games with like Antonio Miralles. Bishop e3, knight c6, queen d2, for example, bishop g7, f3, castles, you know, so castles, d6, knight e2. But you have a position where like this move was thrown in there already. Those knights are, it's like the same position where these knights are disappeared from the board. I don't know if that's how advantageous it is. But I mean, I think it's good for you not to have the knight on g1. I mean, the knight on g1 just kind of gets in the way. You could say the same thing about his knight on c6, though. It gets in the way. Bishop e6. So you transpose to some known games. Yeah, I mean, king b1's a normal move. g4 is a normal move. h4 is a normal move. Is there a problem with h4, for example? Is knight h5 an issue? I don't think so. I mean, this can be a problem. I guess that's a little tricky. So g4. Yeah, I would play either rook c8 or queen a5 here, but I think white might have to consider other possibilities. b5 is a weird move. Off the top of my head, I would be slightly concerned that this pawn sack might be a thing. It's an idea. I think the other moves that have been played are quite normal. Queen a5, rook c8. Personally, I like queen a5 better. a3, rook f c8. White played knight b5. White's like trying to draw against a higher rated player. What else can you do here? Theoretically. Bishop b5? I don't think so. Okay, it's a very interesting position. So he played a5. That's actually an interesting move. So if black can play a4, threaten to play a3, you'll probably have to play a3 yourself. But I think, like, you know, you have to consider everything here. a4 definitely is a very resolute idea. You might consider this, like locking down b5 like once and for all. This is not a crazy move to play a4 for white, in my opinion. You try to stop him permanently, and then you're just going to like stick your bishop on b5 at some point. But I mean, first of all, we're going to go over here. a4 is very resolute. You know, I'm not crazy about bishop h6. I don't think it's the right idea. I would say, like, if you're not going to play a4 or like bishop b5, a4 for black anyway looks kind of scary. Otherwise, I would suggest bishop b5. These sort of pawn sacrifices are dangerous. That's why I'm saying a4. You fix it forever if you play a4. It's going to be hard for him to play b5. If you're not going to play a4 or something, then I think you should play h4 and go for the h5. I mean, a4 is a really weird move, but you see it in certain variations. I don't know if bishop g7 helps black's defense, but I think it costs white time, you know. That's kind of my problem with bishop h6. You are losing time here. I feel like h4 is more natural. What's he going to do? a4? We just go. And then he goes here. I guess you have to play a3, I mean b3. I mean, is it that big a deal? Seriously. It's probably not, you know. I mean, you can go here at some point if you want to neutralize that bishop on g7. And you've got the b5 square. I had the feeling like this isn't so great for black either. This is just my intuition, but I think bishop h6 is probably a mistake. I don't know about if it improves his defense or not. I mean, it's hard to know what to do. It takes like years of experience. He also, you know, potentially could use his rook up on a5. You have to consider very seriously the possibility of playing a3 to fix the pawn. What's up? I play poker badly. Me too. Alright, a4. Bishop g7. I don't know. King g7. I don't think bishop g7 really is bad. h4. And now black has to seriously consider whether or not to play a3. Perhaps circumvent it with, or play something else first. h6, anybody? Can we play h6 instead of the conventional h5? You think the idea is to play bishop h6 to play h4, h5 without allowing black to play h5? Right. No, I mean, I think in the standard form of attack, yeah, you don't trade on g7. What move 11 is trying to say is, like, the standard sort of caveman attack here. We don't trade on g7, we play h5. Where are we? h4. Play h4. You know, we're trying to play for h5. What could happen, you know, I guess theoretically, at some point, something like this. If we just ignore it, he's going to play a3, weaken our control of the knight on c3, and then start attacking it. So it doesn't look that simple to me. Bishop h8, allowing bishop f8, you know, classic exchange sacrifice. I know some people who would like that. Black plays h5. What about h6? Seriously. A like less weakening version. If g5, pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Knight, and you try to play like knight h5. It looks slow. It looks slow. It looks like black's going to get slaughtered, doesn't it? f4 is going to come in. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. We can't do that. h6 is no good. Yeah, queen d4, f4. h6 is not an option here. But okay, h5, while not forced, seems like a reasonable move. And you took. So obviously you've got to consider the possibility of g5, a totally different way of playing it. Here your primary, you know, you're not doing the h file. Now we're going to do f4 and try to bust him with the f5. So let's say g5, knight d7, for example. f4, threatening to just blast it open. My impression is that this looks pretty promising for white. So like move 11 was saying some sort of bishop h8 idea. So if like I sack the exchange, right, which way do you take back? You take with the king, I might have like e5. If you take with the queen seems like slightly misplaced. It's a creative idea. I'm not a dragon expert. I mean, even though I play the accelerated dragon, it's a different thing. So I think I lost the only time I tried to play the real dragon in a serious game. You need a lot of experience. It's not really a dragon, by the way. This was a weird Sicilian, but dragon close enough. So I think here you jeopardize your pawn structure slightly. Check. And if I'm black, I guess I prefer to think this over. Black has 3 serious candidate moves. I mean, king h7, king g8, and f6. Knight f6 is no good. I don't think it's any good. But f6 is going to weaken the g6, but I guess this is a try. Solid try. The g5 looks really nasty now. Black just doesn't have a lot of counterplay. I would prefer, less, I keep saying this today, but it's like the 3rd time I've said it today. Less pawns is good. Less pawn moves is good. The less pawn moves, the better. So I think, our first order of business is probably something like king h7. Yeah, f6, right. You're a dragon player. I play the accelerated dragon. Yeah, I mean, when you've played like h5, yeah, I would play king h7 here. I don't want to be on the g file, and I may be in trouble anyway. But f6 looks like you're really weakening g6. I mean, g6 is super sensitive. I don't think that black will last here. He has like bishop f7 to protect g6. I don't think this is going to work. So check, king h7 was best. Now bishop c4. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I would think, like, first of all, my rook's not doing a lot on h1. So if you're white here, I mean, Bishop c4 is probably not a bad move, but it is true. It's not that easy. Like, he can play rook g1, but it's not that easy to get a second attacker on that pawn. It's going to take a little bit of time. Which makes me actually wonder about something. After knight takes h5, I mean, is queen d4 check necessarily a good move? Black could play queen b6 at some point, taking it away, which is annoying. But I guess my point is, like, we've got to really seriously consider this. This is a huge move. Yeah. I'm thinking queen d4 is a mistake. Like, f4, this looks like crushing. What's he going to do? You know, after f4. I mean, black does have a3. And you probably have to push, which, like, weakens your knight on c3. And who knows? I mean, maybe black has some crazy defense. He can try to hang on with, like, rook a5 or queen here. You know, lateral. Queen, I guess queen there. It looks like, yeah, maybe he's still got chances, but I mean, it could come down to, like, one move. I mean, the f5 looks pretty strong, and you've got this, which can defend laterally. For example, f5, rook c8, rook h3. Just hypothetically. I have the sneaking suspicion that white is, like, winning here. But that's just instinct level. Let's see what the computer says. Yeah, it's close. Wow. Closer than I thought. Obviously, like, this is the only move, bishop d7. So let's check. Was queen d4 the right move? Well, he should have thrown in a3 first, by the way. That's interesting. Yeah, computer has a hard time deciding between a3, queen d4, and f4. He finally likes a3, preventing that counterplay. It's a prophylactic move. Prophylactic move is best according to the engine. That's a difficult judgment, you know. It feels slow. But it really does slow black down. I think this is a mistake, right? Oh, the engine again. Not sure. It looks like it's agreeing with my move for a minute, and now it's going back to f6. Okay, I admit, like, after this, it's harder to put pressure on g6 than I thought. You know, it's not that easy for white to attack g6. So I was thinking, like, rook g1, okay, but then, like, what? You know, you're going to sack a rook, or where is the second attacker against g6? It's not so easy. Art Vega, thank you, 100 bits. Good to see Art Vega, guys. Check him out. Let's get a shout out for Art Vega, one of my favorite chess streamers here on Chess as well. When I'm not watching myself, I'm watching Art Vega. I always use I like to use your adjectives sometimes. Mr. Coffee, thanks for the donation earlier too. 500 bits from Mr. Coffee. Nice to get it on the board. So anyway, dragon, bishop c4, okay. White is better. Now a3. You don't need to see the engine to know, like, you got to do this. It gives you some counterplay. He doesn't, and now he's, like, in big trouble. Rook d5 resigns. What do you guys think? Black has queen a6. Oof. my first impression was like, this is probably game over. Rook takes h5 looks very, very scary, but maybe it's not enough. It's probably not enough. But this still might be a good move. I think he can play queen a6. So let's take a look at what happened. Now another obvious move for you is of course a3, like a safe move. I don't like your pawn structure though. You know, with the isolated h-pawn, you don't want to be trading queens here and going into an ending where you're the one with the isolated pawn. All Sicilian endgames are bad for white, right? I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive. This looks like a sensible move. He has got weaknesses. You know, you're trading an inactive bishop on f1. Here, I mean, that's clearly an option. You went for a queen trade, but I think you're slightly worse now. This structure is the classic, it's a classic dragon structure, right? So this isolated pawn, man, I mean, that's going to make black have real chances. This pawn is pretty nasty. You know, what you've got to do now is try to play as actively as possible by creating threats against your opponent rather than passively defending h4. You might have to give up the h4 pawn. Unlike Mr. Coffee, your king doesn't have cement shoes. Gift sub from Move 11 for Art Vega, thank you. No, King d2 shows good, you know, endgame fundamentals. It also prevents the knight from coming in here. But I feel like you're slightly worse due to the structure. Now you've got c4. I need to see a reason not to play c4. This looks like a really good move, actually. Yeah, he's got to try to attack h4. I mean, I don't think that black's last move, rook a5, looks weird. Rather than playing rook a5, he could have played like rook c8, for example. You know, preventing c4 and trying to put some pressure down this file. Rook a5 is just kind of a fancy move, but I mean c4 gives you improved grip on the center and makes his rook look stupid. c4 is good. Yeah, so he can think about this swing across to try to do the h-pawn thing. Black tried to open it up instead against the white king. You might be in trouble. How do you feel about a rook endgame? It's sort of desperate, but I'm thinking maybe we should play knight e2. This is not a great rook ending. But if black exchanges, you know, I think you have chances to survive here. I know that doesn't sound very good. You have chances to survive. But we have definitely lost the thread. I mean, king e3 is e5, you're in big trouble. To be honest, like, it is a tough judgment, but you missed c4. That would have locked him down. Bringing the king to the center wasn't a bad idea, but it could backfire. We're getting hairy. I mean, it's getting really hairy in here. Hairy with Harry. You're attacking with knight f5. You have king e3. King e3, e5. c3, anyone? Then you have a really bad structure. The knight is so strong, dude. Okay, so this is your last chance. Your last chance to survive. I Play Poker Badly said I'd be looking to get my rook on g1 so I could play knight f5. I'm looking to just like live till tomorrow. you know, at this point. Forget about attacking. I mean, the guy's knight is like the monster from outer space, you know. This is just ridiculously strong. Knight on f4. I think if I can play knight e2, I'm playing it. If I can trade this off and survive, man. If he takes here, takes, like rook here, king e3, you might be lost. But it's really close. You almost have some counterplay here. I mean, h5, g5, h6 check, king h7, rook f1. So given this position, knight f5 check, yeah, it's a great suggestion, but I guess the question is, like, what do we do after that? Is there a follow-up? Or is black just, like, gonna, like, kill us? This is protected. It's a huge problem. And h5, knight takes h5. Maybe you have something there, you know? But I wouldn't play knight f5 unless I was 100% certain. I guess king f8 is better. Black should go king f8. Or king f7, I don't know. It's a tough call. Maybe king f7. So I'm telling you, like, maybe we should just, like, bail with chances to survive. You know, can he or should he avoid the exchange of knights? The more simplified, I mean, the less I like this pawn on h4. But let's say, like, rook d1. If you take over the d file, that's counterplay. It's a tricky ending, you know, I don't know that you're lost. Amazingly, you can, like, leave your knight on prise here. That's a really subtle move. So there's a problem here. Knight e2, king e2, rook c5, c3. He's got a3, busting you at some point. And then there's this piling up laterally on these pawns. So that probably loses at the end of the day. Like, you had to find, like, a perfect move. Rook d1, like a better version of knight e2. But you're just hanging on by a thread here. Yeah, it was tough to hold this. Black played well. For a guy who, like, didn't even know how to play the opening with the weird knight takes d4. This, though, I wouldn't be 100% sure about. I thought he was going to play rook, like, c5. But I guess there you have this. That a3 move is going to kill you. Yeah, the knight on f4 is a terror. You just can't do anything. Okay, so what about king d2? Can we play this? My question was here, c4, b5. Feels like you're playing God. Maybe you could hold an ending like one pawn down. For example, like rook here, takes. If he goes into this, like, is black definitely winning this position? Is this totally 100% lost? Computer thinks it is. But I don't think, like, the average player would necessarily be able to win it easily. I mean, he'd get his king up here. It's pretty bad. Both of your pawns are weak, but it would take a good technique. You could still put up some resistance here against a typical player. Check. This is unfortunate. And you resigned for good reason. Alright. That was a surprising game. Alright. Next is the legendary Big Dummy. Thank God it's not a game again. Thank you all for not submitting games against me this week. Nothing I like more than seeing my own losses. So Big Dummy playing white in a Caro-Kann. Thanks to Art Vega for stopping by, and for the gift sub for Art Vega. Thanks Move11, 2 gift subs tonight. Mr. Coffee and Art for donating some bits. Don't forget to check out Art's stream as well. Art Vega 1983. Okay. So Big Dummy's white. I mean, I'm going nuts with Knight F6. I don't know how white can possibly beat this variation. I'd rather face Bishop F5 all day. You know, this is like way more. Isn't Bishop F5 bad? No, it's not bad. It's like the main line. I think it's still the main line. I think computers are having their say, theoretically, you know, in the popularity of chess openings. And the EF Caro-Kann was never very popular because of the ugly structure. But Alekhine played it, you know, 100 years ago. I mean, this move is very fundamental, right? It's the most fundamental move. Challenge the knight with a knight, develop toward the center. And when I take, you take this way, you know, so you have a solid kingside structure all in one island. I think the computer likes Knight F6 best. It's like 0.2. Stockfish says Knight F6 is 0.2 advantage to white, and Bishop F5 is like 0.3. It's that much of a difference. 1/10 of a pawn differential. But I mean, you know, we're seeing a lot more people playing Knight F6 who are judging the openings by the computer's analysis at the high levels. I really don't have a clue how to get an advantage against this, even begin to get an advantage. But Bishop F5 is still the main move. White has to play Knight G3. There are sidelines that aren't that great. This is the main line, Bishop G6. And now you can delay H4. You know, you can play without H4, but without H4, like Spassky against Karpov, there are trick lines too, like Knight H3, Knight E2, Bishop C4. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think like this is the only move that really poses serious danger. Black plays H6, and now this is a legitimate question here. A lot of people play H5 automatically, you know, but it's actually maybe like slightly inaccurate to do that. There's no reason white has to play H5 automatically, so it's better to play like Knight F3 first. Black plays, now there are different moves, but most people like prevent the Knight E5. However, I remember watching someone, I guess it was like Hikaru playing black, I can't remember. But I mean, there's a sort of like school of thought that says it's better to allow Knight E5 to hit our bishop and then like trade it off than prevent it from coming to E5. So the idea would be that E6 might actually, you know, be trickier because you induce white to do this, and then you're gonna like challenge it with Knight D7. I guess like here, bishop takes D3, queen takes D3, Knight D7, and then F4. Look at the score for black. I mean, it's like ridiculous. Black has a plus score, 24% to 29. But anyways, white doesn't have to do Knight E5. I mean, I think most people will go H5 a lot. Alright, anyways, I like E6. Black played Knight F6. So now H5 isn't forced by any means. I think Knight F6 is like the least common move in this position, right? I mean, usually it's Knight D7 or E6. I mean, I don't know too much about Knight F6. knight e5. Obviously, you can also play h5, transposing. Knight e5, bishop h7. So same idea. He'll try to like challenge your knight on e5. You played bishop d3. He's got a take. Very rarely you see variations where black allows the exchange on h7, like a Joko piano on the other side of the board. But I don't know, man. That's just weird. I mean, there's really no reason to do that. I can't believe it. Here, for example, bishop takes h7, rook takes h7, or what do they do? Mamajarov has some games. It's just, you know, it's a weird sideline. Whatever. Takes, queen takes. I don't know what's wrong with knight d7 here. I suppose it's a move. Black plays e6, and now, yeah, you have two moves. I mean, this is typical situation. You can play either bishop f4 or bishop d2. You know, I want to say something that, you know, you guys who play the Caro-Kann, I studied this like back in like 1986. I mean, and I have some experience at least, but one of the things about the h4, h5 is if you don't play h5, that pawn doesn't fall off like 20 moves from now. This is kind of the main idea. In the main lines, the way always played h5, but the modern idea was that maybe it's like we should rethink that, because that pawn on h5, it's like fixed there, it's constantly under attack by the knight on f6. It becomes a liability and it can just like lose games. Like black would lose that h5, or white would lose the h5 pawn in a lot of times. So, you know, the modern way of playing this is not to play h5 necessarily, you know, because the pawn becomes like more of a target out there. So I think, you know, both are playable. You play bishop f4 normally? Yeah, I had a game where I played this guy the other day. Not the same exact position, but a similar one, where I played bishop f4 and he played knight d5. And like, there was practically no games in the database. This is like a typical reaction. It's an amateur move that, you know, he doesn't know the theory. So now bishop d2. You try to go here, I could move my queen, or even maybe just like take, you know. So this is knight d5 is a bad move. Black plays like bishop e4 check or something. Not in this position. Normally check, bishop d2. I don't know. It's a position. There are different ways for both sides to play. So there's only one game where his move has ever been played. Yeah, I've never seen like queen b6. Black has normally to get the knight out, you know, to d7. Occasionally you'll see like an early c5 or something like that. There's actually one game with c5. Wow. Turov, who's a good player. Very tricky guy. I don't know what's up with that. Bishop e7, a la Bent Larson. Some older games. It's very dangerous for black to castle kingside because this g-pawn will come down. You're born in 1988. Yeah, I mean, I had been playing the Caro-Kann since I was a kid, so I remember sitting at the kitchen table like with my Caro-Kann, this old book by Kasparov, and I had like an old Kasparov Sweeten book, or I don't remember who it was. Kasparov somebody. Then some other Sweeten book. In the mid 80s. I wasn't, you know, yeah, it was around 86, I think. Yeah, don't know. I'm going to the World Senior Championship in November, so the secret is lots of long naps. At least for the first like 35 years of your life. Yeah, queen b6 is just weird. Modern chess opening theory. Yeah, I had that too. I was studying that at the same time. But no, Sweden wrote a book on the Caro-Kann. One of the first books, like Caro-Kann for the Tournament Player, it was a very good book for that time. One of the best, the best Caro-Kann book. I was really up to date. I had the best Caro-Kann book ever in 1986. But I never really did a lot of Caro-Kann success, unfortunately. It turned out I ended up not playing bishop f5 with black, weirdly enough. For some reason, I don't know why. I started trying to play like knight d7, which really isn't as easy to play. So queen b6, castles queenside. Queen b6 is just bad. Has to go here. What do you do about this? I don't remember this variation too well. I don't think I would like playing this with black, the way that black is playing this. Not my preference. I mean, seriously, it's like, it's more risky. It's easier to play knight d7. I think this is the safest. Just don't let white put his knight on e5. I mean, that's a safer policy, let's say. It's more risky to allow knight e5, encourage it, allow white to establish knight e5, then play f4. I mean, it can get dangerous. So you're following this game, Harman Yonkman against Slobodan from 1999. But white doesn't want to trade queens here, Yeah, he's trying to like play queen a5, check, bishop d2, queen a6 or something. I wonder what Johnny Hector would do. He would probably like do something crazy like a4 and sacrifice a pawn. Just because you played h4 doesn't mean you have to castle queenside. I'm just kind of like messing around here. I imagine like it may not be that great for white. Maybe black just plays a5 or something. But if black were to get greedy and castle, and we were to castle kingside, this could be quite dangerous for black, I would think. So I mean, it's possible for you to consider some sort of unorthodox plan like a4. Probably not that good though. He could still go here. So Yonkman castled, black played queen a6, same thing, and now queen b3. Okay, this is a little weird, but it makes sense. We don't want to trade queens when we have more space. We're playing for attack. Black's king is in the center of the board. What you're going to try to do, attack down the e file, attack down the g file if he castles kingside. So I guess black should try to castle queenside, but you can't with a knight on f7. So in the game, they just like repeated moves or something. Queen b6. Maybe black has something better here. I don't know. This is interesting though. Lower rated player like declining a draw to play for a win. Maybe not, though. Now black declining a draw, essentially. Like, had white played queen d3, would Slobodan have played queen a6? Was it just that, like, he went here on e3 and he said, oh, now I'm going to play for a win with bishop e7? Unclear. Alright. So your game was actually queen a6, knight a6. Now it's pretty equal. White has a tiny edge, probably. But objectively, I don't think you should trade queens. c4 is an interesting move, too. It's certainly not forced. But I don't think it's bad. You got to be very careful about this pawn on d4. The pawn can be attacked. I was expecting black to immediately try to come in but I guess it doesn't do anything. You just play a3. It's not so easy, you know. So looking at it, you know, a second time, you might have, because of the knight on the unorthodox square on a6, maybe white's position is better than I thought. Some plans before c4. Well, I mean, you don't have that many plans here now. It's the end game. I think c4 is a reasonable move. Obviously, like f4, f5. My first inclination would be to play rook ae1. It's important to remember that he can't move his king because of f7. That's a huge problem. How is he going to eliminate the knight on e5? Right, tomato farmer, but that's like typically like, you know, let's say with the queens on the board. How the heck does black defend f7? It's pretty awkward to play like bishop e7, rook f8, and castle queenside. So, I mean, typically you'll see people try to play like this, but I mean, you got to be careful here. But I suppose knight d7. I don't think you have to play c4. It's not your only plan, but it's not a bad move. What about c5? Another move attacking your center that makes sense, right? You can't underestimate the importance of attacking the center. Tomato Farm was talking about this. But I mean, black is tied down to f7. That's very concerning, you know. He's not going to be able to survive without getting rid of that knight on e5 at some point. And not easy to get rid of it. Right. Okay, so this makes sense to castle kingside. I think that's a good plan. You know, another thing he could do theoretically would be play like bishop b4. But it's his good bishop. At least he got, you know, f7 defended and connected his rooks. And I don't think your attack on the king side is very strong here. Without the queens on the board, this is pretty slow. So white is better, but not so easy. Now king b1. To be frank, I think this is a bad move. If anything, I would consider moving the king to c2. It's not a terrible bad move. It's just like not a good move, you know. It's not really a positive move. I think it's a negative move. Your king is further from the center in the endgame. Yeah, there's theoretically a chance like the c-file could open up or something. But it certainly wouldn't be my first choice. It feels just like you're making a super safe move. Here, here. Maybe black should play knight b8, you know? I mean, that's the best way to fix that. Probably. It's a very passive position for black, though. But I mean, the important thing is that you got control of d5. I mean, black's got control of d5. So you can't play d5. You're going to have to look for this, maybe. Okay, trading pieces makes some sense. See, if your king was on c2, you could just ignore this and take back with the king. I don't know which way to take back. I think you're better, and this is like one of the main reasons why. A3 is like kind of, I thought you would play that for sure. But you're not a lot better. It's difficult to come up with a plan. Incrementally improve your position. But I don't think trading pieces really does much. It's equal now. You know, the more pieces he trades, the closer black gets to equality. And you've got to be a little bit careful now. Yeah, I think g4 looks unrealistic. Maybe it's good. I mean, I have to look a little closer. I don't like the rook's not protected. Like, why not chase his knight away from b4, for example? Chase his knight away from b4 and play king c2. I mean, you're just slightly better. I guess he has this, but then you might be able to ram the pawn to d5. I'm not sure what's going on there. But I mean, whatever. In all positions, you're slightly better. Look at this endgame, for example. Takes. You've got the queenside majority of 3 against 2 in a knight endgame. I mean, I think... I'm telling you, I think that g4 is not the greatest. You're playing for a kingside attack, but I feel like you should be playing for a general endgame advantage. Now black played g6, man. Man, g6 looks really bad. Am I missing something here? I mean, he has to do c5, right? What's the best answer to a flank attack? Here comes the flank attack. We gotta strike him. I don't get it. Like, aren't you, like... Isn't this just... If it was me against Schieberspieler, I'd be, like, offering a draw here. I'd be sure that he had equalized. It's got to be c5. He's lucky he has that move. That was my problem leaving the rook unprotected. You can't push. You're not in immediate danger, but I mean, what happens? Like a3, knight c6, knight takes c6, b takes c6, pawn takes d5. Well, it's your turn. Yeah. King c2. Amazingly, like, you're actually keeping an edge here. Wow. Takes. This actually looks kind of problematic for black. He's in some trouble. Wow. So, c5a3. I still can't believe it. Knight c6, knight c6, b takes c6, king c2. Alright, he has to avoid the exchange of rooks, I guess. So takes, rook takes, and looks difficult for black, actually. Man, the engine says the only move is rook takes rook, rook takes rook. g5 or f5, gaining counterplay. Counterplay against the f2 pawn. This is not easy at all. Yeah, really insanely good game by white. Well, when Tomato Farmer doesn't blunder, he plays extremely well. His big weakness is like major blunders. But this move looks atrocious. I don't like g6. I guess I was afraid of g5. But maybe that's something he could like deal with somehow. Black never challenged your pawn on d4. He just went like super passive. Yeah, he didn't realize, I mean, how bad it is to go passive. This has got to be the last chance. Here. Look at the engine. It's getting counterplay. f5. Ugly. I didn't consider it because it was so ugly, but if I was black, I would have considered it. c5 is more natural. The problem is the a3. Sidelining the knight again. Yeah, this is scary too. Like f6, knight g6, rook e8, or rook f7. Really good game by white. He managed to keep an edge. But g6 is bad. This is really bad. And now black's too passive. Protected passed pawn here. So last chance is f5. But you played knight f3, preventing it. And he just loses a pawn. And now it's decisive. I mean, the pawns are really strong. And it's over. Do you have rook takes f6? Or you just win a piece? Okay. Yeah, that was a surprisingly devastating endgame by white. I mean, I felt that he misplayed it and he actually gave away, you know, the queen exchange, but he had more advantage than I thought. The knight on a6 was bad. Black's whole plan is bad with queen b6. It's funny how one minor thing like putting your knight on a6 leaves him with a long-term disadvantage. Okay, you bought us. You bought us is white, if he's still with us. He said he didn't like his opponent's move d6. I like d6 against knight f3 a little bit better. Because, you know, it kind of, like, takes control of e5. It also, like, offers to go into, like, Sicilian or something like that. After c4, d6. Not too many people play d6 against c4. Knight f3, it makes more sense. There's also, you know, knight f3, d6, with ideas of bishop g4. There's nothing there particularly great about d6. So it's like a kind of close English. You like this e3. You know, personally, I think it's a matter of taste. I mean, d4 might be a good move here. There's this kind of thing. You know, there's a famous game that reminds me of. There was a game like Lilienthal played, I think, where he did something like bishop takes c6, b takes c, and went into an ending like that, creating really complicated play. So I like d4 here. Of course, black could play a lot of different things. He could play maybe like bishop d7, avoiding said trap. d4 is a straight up Dutch. He plays e3 and then e6, and I thought e6 is really weird. e3 is weird. He's like, okay, e3 is weird, but no, not really, because your knight comes to e2. It is like a common setup in the English. e6 is weirder. You know, why doesn't black play e5 here? And if you don't play e5, then why not play g6 and just keep the pawn back on e7? Alright, so e6 sort of seems like a stupid move. Knight on g to e2, and now bishop e7. Well, I mean, if you're going to do e6, the bishop's on a more passive square on e7 than g7. Now d4. Castles. And now I don't really love this move, but I guess it's okay. We played a3. As I said, like, less pawn moves is better. I suppose it's not a bad move. You slightly weaken some squares. You're preparing to play b4. Black has to consider a5, of course. I mean, a lot of English players would say play rook b1 rather than a3, because you can support b4 in one move. That's typical. The only problem with rook b1 would be like a bishop coming to this diagonal, but it's hard to see his bishop coming to this diagonal. In this position, it feels like rook b1 is probably okay. It's something to think about, you know. Black makes weird moves. Okay, a6 is definitely strange. I don't know what a6 is about. castles. It's almost like he's copying you, right? You played e3, he played e6. You played a3, he played a6. Is that coincidence? Now he plays rook b8, getting off the long diagonal. Okay, this makes sense. And now you played b4, and there's no b5. And now bishop d7, defending his knight, threatening, at least, you know, theoretically, to be able to play b5. And you played d5, disrupting him. This looks like a good move, actually. So black, maybe last move? Last move, he could consider doing e5 again. I don't think like Lilienthal's plan is a good idea here, where the weaknesses are on the king. If you can't, well, he could trade queens, but still, I don't really like this a whole lot. Alright, so bishop takes e6, not a great move. Bishop d7, d5, yeah. And then, of course, black has to play this, attacking the pawn on c4. Correct? In the center, do you want your knight on the center or the side of the board? Attacking the c4 pawn. Instead, he goes there. I told the story like a million times that the last time I put a knight on a7, I like swore to myself I'm never going to do that again. That was in 1999. I don't know if I've ever put a knight on a7 like in the middle game, but I've definitely not done it in the opening again since my promising myself I wouldn't do it. This is not good. As much as you might be a fan of Richard Rapport. So after knight a7, I think Yabatis maybe mentioned like white should possibly take here and play knight d5. But I understand the point. The point is, like, you don't want to give black the chance to play e5 and lock it up. Gingy used to love to play this kind of structures when we would play blitz. Well, this pawn is a little bit of a nuisance, but there's even, like, I think we even looked at exchange sacrifices here. Takes, and like giving up this rook is kind of fun, but unclear. Or you can play knight f4. You know, sacrificing a pawn. I'm not sure we have enough compensation. Possibly we do. There's some interesting stuff. Look at this, like knight f4, bishop takes c4, queen d4, double attack here and here. Black takes the rook. Now just say for argument's sake, I don't know, you play like king takes. Now the knight is hanging. And there's a fork here. Hello, white square. And your knight is hanging. So how do you solve both problems? If you play knight c6, queen c4 check, and now white's winning the exchange with knight e6. Black's up a pawn, but he has like no control over the white squares at all. An interesting question at the minimum. You know, here, let's say, there. I mean, this position you could take this knight on c6, but I don't know. I think I'd rather just have compensation. White has immense compensation for the sacrificed pawn here. Weaknesses all over black's position. f5, e6, d7 here. So, alright. The game continuation you didn't take. You played bishop b2, and now e5 closing it up. f4. This is not forced, but he wants to like play it like it is a closed Sicilian reversed. You're not letting black play f4, reducing his counterplay. Knight c8. Terrible piece. And now, I mean, if I were white here, and I think Yabatis probably thought about this, I mean, typically what you do is something like h3, keep control of this prophylactically, play queen d2, slowly build up and improve your position. But this was like a 10-minute game. So he just rolls the dice here. Taking on e5. Takes, and then expand. This is a form of trash compactor, which is more commonly seen in maybe the Sveshnikov or something like Alyakin's defense. But this big compactor here, it's a serious problem. I mean, you have to worry about both this and this at some point. So black seeking counterplay, knight g4, and then, this is fine. But you did queen b3 with a sneaky trap. So if knight e3, d6, discover check, winning a piece. Here, and now you defended with knight d1. That's better than playing bishop c1. Knight d1, kick him out, and we're rolling. And now the e5 pawn is basically, it's under attack. So I guess if black has to use his brain here, what's like the only move? e4. e4 is possible, or alternatively, bishop f6. I think he was concerned about h3 and the knight getting kicked back to h6, but that's like the least of his problems. I think what you don't want to do is like drop your central pawn under any circumstances. So after knight d1, it's not just defending, I mean we're attacking here. He just like drops it. h3, and now black plays a totally random move, bishop a4. It's a problem though for white because you have to keep like e3 protected, and he's starting to take the knight on d1. So here, yeah, because if you play queen d3, he might have e4 at some inconvenient moment. Queen c3, bishop b5. Not what we expected. Another tricky tactic. So he took here, and I thought that you would just play rook takes f5. And I think that white is just crushing in the center. But instead you played rook f2. He takes here, he's up a pawn temporarily. You get it back, and then you've got the very strong pawns in the center. But it feels like, black's almost hanging on. Actually, the problem is the mate here and c7. And basically, black had bishop f6, but queen c7, bishop takes b2. I mean, this is similar to what happened in the game. He played instead queen f7. You could have played queen takes c7. You missed it, or declined not to play it, or declined to play it in queen f7, e4. But look at the center. I feel like every game Yabata submits to the subscription stream, the subscriber stream with analysis, he's always rolling with the central pawns. Queen f6, and this is doubly protected. Here, it's so nice, like g5 doesn't work. You just take it, here, and now you're threatening e5. Game over. That's how I roll. This is devastating, strategically devastating. And you can't take because you're dropping a rook, essentially. Sorry, I skipped ahead. Sorry about that. I want to show you the end here. Knight takes here, and then e5. And that's unstoppable. And I suppose you can win with either capture, but this gives you two connectors. And then rook e1, because all the pieces have to get in the game. Proper Botvinnik style middle game strategy. We don't, go in for the kill until all the pieces are in the game. Queen e6, knight d3. Now all pieces are coordinated. I like this pawn on g4. And there's no stopping it now. He actually offered a trade of queens. I mean, White's is so perfectly coordinated, it's ridiculous. Look at this. This is sick. It must be like plus 14 for White. Traded e6. It's almost a pity to let him sacrifice his knight for one of your pawns. This is probably like Black's best chance to sack the knight on e6. e7. Hey, have some more. This is, oh, that's nice though. I like the end. I don't think I saw this part. I like how he put his pieces all in the back rank. That's pretty cool. Rook f8 check. And that sort of ruins the theme there, getting his king off the back rank. Nice game. Alright, guys. Ubatis, nice game. Move 11 submitted a modern masterpiece by, we'll just add it, Grandmaster level chess here from Move 11. Anand Karawana from last year's Gashima Memorial. It's a blitz game. Alright. It's not a modern masterpiece, it's a blitz game. For those of you that don't know, Vugar Gashimov was an Azeri grandmaster that, I don't remember which year, relatively recent times he passed away. He was a contender for like a top 10 place in the world, and he was very creative. He was an expert in the Benoni, so they have a memorial tournament for him. I'm still not getting this game. What is going on? Alright, let's try this one more time. Move 11, submitting game Anand Karawana. Why is it not working? Well, I guess I could just try to blow it up. Let's see. Analysis board, get PGN, flip the board, practice with computer, get PGN. We'll just get PGN. Whatever, I'll just grab it. Copy. Alright, tools, analysis board. Here we go. Thanks, guys, for your support, as always. It's been a long Thursday, but I enjoy going over these games. I think the analysis stream is like my favorite stream. Alright, so it's Black. From Black's perspective, shall we? Again, Anand Karawana. Roy Lopez, A6. So no Berlin defense, that's good. You're not allowed to submit the Berlin defense on the stream. It's a good thing that actually, Big Dummy didn't submit his Berlin defense against me from the simul. That was ugly, man. He was crushing me strategically and then made like a horrible, unlucky blunder, and I just like luckily won a piece. But again, thanks to you guys for not submitting your wins against me or games against me in general. Okay, so A6 and D6. My first ever game with John Curdo. My first ever E4 game. I told the story. Not E4 at all, but over the board. Steinitz deferred. John's favorite trap, like he would beat like 1600s, was when they like let him do the Noah's Ark trap. So a lot of people will blunder like, d4, b5, bishop b3, and then knight takes d4, knight takes d4, e takes d4. Curdo like played a lot of lower level tournament, like club tournaments, and so he loved to get people with this. But I mean, look at the list. It's like it's crazy, man. Tregubov, another 2500. Look at these guys who like fell for the Noah's Ark trap. 2588. Fushti-Jolt, 2300. It's just like a graveyard of like masters who fell into the Noah's Ark trap. C5, Queen D5. And now bishop e6. Queen c6 check, bishop d7, queen d5, and c4, and you lose a piece. Curdo probably did that to like 10 different people in his career. But the best chance for white, actually, I mean, this is a real variation. The best chance for white is a gambit, right? Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, e takes d4, and c3. And I don't remember where I saw this first. That's probably in, like, Sueton, Roy Lopez. Alexei Sueton also wrote, like, the groundbreaking book on the Roy Lopez, one of the most complete editions for, like, Schachverlag, the German chess opening book series. I think I probably know it from there. But this is actually an interesting line. I mean, white basically plays like a Danish gambit style thing. I still can't remember where I first saw that in another book, but which game it eludes me. I mean, maybe there was a Fischer game with white. Was it in my 16 memorable games? Is it possible? Does anybody else remember? Maybe Bobby Fischer had a game playing this with white. I have very vague memories of studying back to 1986. Uber Driver, you would know, of all people. Was my 16 memorable a game with this line? I can't remember. Alright. Maybe it was something else. So anyway, bishop d7. You heard that Curdo died, right? Uber Driver. c3. g6. So this is yeah, he was 90. Every time I see like the deferred Steinitz, I think about him. Our first game. g6 is classic though, you know. White's setup is a little bit slow. c3, you know, he's not trying to blow black away. Now we put pressure on the center. Bishop g7. Rook e1. So I mean, like, the problem is with this move, your knight isn't as aggressively placed as it is on f6. Yeah, I mean, I think people have that idea, Uber Driver, but generally speaking, like, it's not as easy to turn it into a King's Indian as you think. Although that, I guess, happens in this game. So, I agree with Caruana here, you know, at least, like, fundamentally. There's the argument, like, okay, here you don't block your bishop. You play it like a Vienna with colors reversed, like a Mises variation. You don't block your f-pawn, but the problem is the knights are redundant and you have less space and your knight doesn't put any pressure on the white center. Yeah, knight d4 trick. You know all the tricks, man. I kind of like this move, though, you know, because it's just like the knight has pressure on e4 and it's a little more active. So we're going over, speaking of tricks, we're going over Anand Caruana blitz game from last year. White plays bishop c2. I mean, that's clearly not forced. What, black's not even like threatening this twice yet. What about like bishop b3? I mean, is that bad? For some reason? I mean, this is kind of a juicy diagonal, no? Black could play... Well, black can't play knight e5, though. I think bishop e3 is kind of underrated. If black has to play h6, okay, that's a normal move anyway, but in any case, like, it's a move. Alright. Knight on bd2 is the main move. Bishop c2, rook e8. Now we're trying to keep pressure on this. Watch out for, like, pawn takes pawn. You know, if white makes a slow move. Let's just say a3, for argument's sake. No. Look, what stupid move can white play here? I don't know, rook e2. Pawn takes pawn, knight b4. What I'm trying to illustrate is the threat of knocking this bishop off the diagonal and then, like, winning the pawn on e4. That could potentially happen. So knight on bd2, you know, makes the most sense. It guards the e4 pawn. But this is a very weird move. So in this position, again, it was a blitz game. Anand decided to play d5, where it's never been played before. I'm sure he'll find some solace in knowing that random bullet players on Lichess have played this move before. If it makes you feel any better, Vichy, like 24 people have played it. But not a move like you typically want to play. You know, white doesn't want to give up the tension necessarily. So he goes into a King's Indian style thing. But every single player who's played this in over the board games, including Firouzja Carlson, has played knight on bd2. What other options does white have, though? a3. Can't we play a3? Yeah, there's a game. Sweerts was already 2,600 in 2013. That's so weird, you know? Janet Jackson against Mircea Parligras, the beast from the East. He beat Janet Jackson. That's pretty amazing, actually. I wonder if he got her autograph. Alright. All jokes aside. A3 is an alternative. D5. I don't really like this move. Yeah. Here. Now we're going to have problems unraveling. Oftentimes you have to play like knight, like in the King's Indian, knight g8, but I mean white's setup is sort of stupid. You know, he doesn't have a King's Indian. He's playing c3. There you go. Now he turns it into a King's Indian. You know, Caruana does play the King's Indian, right? Actually, Yabatis likes to play positions like this too. The only good thing for white is this rook is on the wrong square. It needs to go to rook f8, which he does, as you'll see. Black to move. Personally, I like this, and this. That's like the Uber driver fantasy variation. But h6 rules that out, so important move. Knight c3. This is not a standard King's Indian, remember. I mean, you don't typically play like h6 in the King's Indian classical. Because if you play h6 and you're playing, you know, for f5, I mean, you don't want to have like extra white square weaknesses. So this is all, like, it's kind of an artificial King's Indian. This is not a great square either. I feel like white is probably still better here, but he's got to play, you know, very carefully. b4. This allows a5, by the way. I mean, Caruana must have seriously considered this possibility, but white can either take, allow rook takes, and play like a4, or play bishop a3, like in a bayonet King's Indian, where you have this, and then white tries to do like a4, a5. But as far as King's Indians go, I think this is a pretty good King's Indian for white. At the end of the day, black's pieces are on weird squares. Rook on e8, like knight on h7. Compared to the normal King's Indian, that kind of sucks. And this bishop on c2 is pretty good on the diagonal. So I feel like so far Anand is okay. f5. No, I like this for white. Really important moment, though. I mean, should Anand open it up with pawn takes pawn? This is like the most important decision in King's Indians. You know, should you let black push, or, you know, white can let him push. Should he consider this? Is it a problem? Like, do you lose material with e4? This is a major question. I could see like white even having a piece sacrifice here, possibly. Mom says knight d4, but then we have knight takes f5. Questioning the depth of Mama's analysis. It's not so easy. You know, if you take, I'll take with the pawn. If you play this, it's like kind of awkward. If you play this, you're like losing your bishop, but maybe that's the thing. I don't know, man. The dark square bishop looks pretty important. You hold your nose. Peter is holding its nose here. It's it's close. It's close. I mean, this is a blitz game, man, so they were probably both like unsure about it. He decided not to take on f5. c5. And then what I think is the most important single decision in closed King's Indians is like whether you take or push. But here, like, push, I mean, taking is not a good option, I don't think. It's playable, but white has really firm control of e4. Firm. That's what the scanners say after working with Hans Niemann before the round starts. Boom, boom. Now, all right, knight e4. Anyway, c5, f4. Yeah, absolutely, Uber Driver. I mean, that's like classic kind of King's Indian thing. Like, you try to add pressure without committing. But you got to be really careful. Like, sometimes this sort of avalanche happens or something like that. I mean, it's not on, but it's like a possibility. I'm telling you, like, Caruana's King's Indian is not. This is not great. Rook on e8 and knight on h7. I mean, seriously. That, sir, is not a King's Indian. So he plays f4. And Anand should know what to do here. You know, knight d2. He plays it. There is one problem, though. Like, normally in the King's Indian, your bishop would be on e2. So it helps to hold up this sort of diagonal, or possibly goes back to f1. After f4, I think this is a major thing. Whereas in the normal King's Indian, it would be over there. You know, should Anand think about maybe like an alternative plan? What would Dave Vigorito do? Like, what about bishop a4 here? I mean, is this just... Welcome to the rest of your life. No, I mean, seriously, is this like Vigorito 1, Caruana 0? Or what? I mean, how strong is black's counterplay after bishop a4? Can an average IM take out Caruana after bishop a4? I mean, without that bishop and these sort of stupid pieces and your bad bishop on g7, I have serious doubts about black's position. If Vishy had just seen my video first, he never would have played. Yeah, bishop c8. Well, maybe in a blitz game, this is a good sack, dude. Seriously. I applaud your bravery. No, I mean, seriously, in a blitz game, that's a good suggestion. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, I mean, you can keep going with the attack, and the queen kind of rolls out there. Nice. This is a great suggestion by maybe the best suggestion that Uber driver ever made. That's a tremendous idea. I love it. I love this idea. The bishop stays on the board. You sack the exchange. You still have a sucky dark square bishop. That'll come back and defend like f8. But what does it matter? It's a blitz game. You're going for it. Alright, knight d2, rook f8, bishop a4. Oh, look what he found. It's too late. Oh no! Even Sladgie saw that coming. It's a little easier to play bishop c8 here. Oh my god, it's too late. We don't even get the exchange now, and black still has an attack. This looks dangerous, but f3 is very scary. Yeah, I mean, this is scary, man. Anand's potentially in a dangerous position if he's not careful. So he takes. This is always like, I'm not sure we want to do that. White wishes he didn't play h3. You know, I think it might be time for the boogie woogie, man. Seriously, what would happen if Caruana just like busted out the king f1? I mean, Anand busted out the king f1 and started like running to the other side of the board. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm gonna run away. You wanna attack me on the king side? I'm gonna run away. You do like a Korchnoi. f3. That's fine. I'm taking. Maybe black has compensation. I don't know. I'm not overly convinced. I bet a computer would like eat black alive here. What do I know? Black's pieces are really, really stupidly placed on the second rank. G5, right? And then there. Yeah, I like your suggestions, though. Alright. Here, 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 here. We just roll. This was not Anand's best day, by the way. B takes a6, and now rook takes a6. Which is quite an interesting decision. This is a move that probably is overlooked by a lot of players, but you know, the automatic recapture leaves c6 kind of weak, but keeps b5 protected. So this is a major decision. Caruana plays rook takes. He keeps the base of his pawn chain protected with the rook on a6. Also the b6 square. Doesn't give up c6. You gotta see like bishop a3, knight c4. This is coming. And now Anand got back with bishop e2. Oh yeah. We're back to a Sandor King's Indian now. He got his bishop on the right track. Knight g6. Are you serious? But she didn't play bishop g4 here. Alright. What do you do after that? You go get a copy of, like, Dynamic Chess Strategy or something? There's a game in there, man. This looks bad. What is black doing after that? Do we really have enough play? I'm playing bishop g4 all day. And this is like bread and butter. I guess Hikaru would probably swindle me. So what's the point? If he takes, we take with the h-pawn. I don't know, but I don't really think black's definitely better here. Bishop g4 looks pretty good. Maybe like Anand shouldn't wait for black to play knight f6. I would be scared of bishop g4. But you know what? Like, maybe he can actually do it here. For example, takes. Build the wall. What does the engine say after bishop g4? I'm going to guess white has to be better. Wow. It doesn't like HG. Something... There's a problem. Wow, what is it? Some kind of technical problem. I don't understand why black can't play HG. Queen d7. F3. I mean, is this really an issue? Wow. You know, Caruana has like bishop f6, bishop d8, getting that bad bishop in the game. That's crazy, dude. Like, seriously. Wow. So, just hypothetically, if you did this, you would get bishop f6, bang, and then, like, no way to stop it. That's pretty cool. Black's position has more life than I thought. But it looked like, turns out you have h5, which I completely missed. It's unbelievable how strong black's attack is, with no light squared bishop. But I mean, that's a computer, man. Not everybody would find that. Like, really high-level King's Indian players, like Hikaru, Kasparov, Mr. Slow, Gawain Jones. You know, normally this attack wouldn't be so effective. So the computer likes queen takes better. White squares. Black's only equal here. Alright, anyway. Anand maybe was right. I don't know. It's not necessary to play bishop g4. Rook b1, knight h4. a4. That's certainly not a high-speed move. That's like I've got all day to do whatever I want. While black builds up, you know, his King's Indian. I'd say Anand's pretty confident here. Very typical King's Indian plan now. Here, here, and this is not what we really want to see. But again, Caruana is able to just like give up the late squared bishop. This is sort of surprising. Oh, he gives up a whole rook. Wow. It's a blitz game. Oh, man. So here his rook is hanging. Holy crap. His rook is hanging, and he could have played rook b8, and it's probably not that bad. That's insane. So he actually sacks the rook with rook g7. Is this even sound? Wow. Yeah, Anand doesn't believe him and plays knight takes a8. I mean, obviously Vishy can take this on c8. Knight takes, I don't know, queen takes or rook takes. It's not sure that like black is winning or something. The computer does think he's better. Black is clearly better after knight takes c8. It likes knight takes a8. But I don't know about the depth, man. And this is about depth. Yeah, see, it's dropping like a rock now. Wow, I mean, you gotta get the computer on a high depth here. This is extremely deep. Move 11, did you put this on, like, Leela overnight or something, man? I mean, you're probably looking at, you gotta be at least depth 20. Knights in the corner with computers. That's an awesome, you know, sack. I won't say, like, uncommon, though. I haven't been playing the classical King's Indian with black for a long time, but I think this is kind of almost like a typical idea, although I wouldn't find it here. Damn. That's impressive. Hikaru would definitely find this. He's got way more experience than Caruana, playing the black side of the King's Indian, for example. Wow. So it's just like, it's like your intuitive experience with G4. HG4, Knight G4. So I have a feeling like Queen G5 is coming, but I mean, what do I know? Yep. We got 1, 2, 3 on G2. There are some other possibilities. Knight H2, Knight F2. It looks like Anand is too slow. Remember when Jinji sacrificed the knight against me, it was like, it was something like knight takes G2. I wouldn't be surprised if this works, right? The problem, like, there might be a problem. He does that later. This is sick, yeah. Knight H2. There's a queen trap on F3. Oh, he just takes. Wow. I was looking at this. Queen takes, you know, and bishop here. But there's no clear follow-up, is there? Maybe this wins. No, it doesn't win, right? Because you got queen d3. It's a draw by repetition. Bishop e2. Queen h3. Bishop g4. Queen d3. What do you guys think? Is it a draw by repetition? Is that a proper result here? I'm not convinced. You know, I think black might still be winning. Like queen h4 check, king g1, bishop here. Looks kind of difficult. But you never know. Like, he might be able to run away. Yeah, white wins by getting away. Oh my god. White doesn't win. He's actually, like, worse. Wow. But he was winning. Okay. Well, bishop h3 doesn't work. g3. No, the computer is totally confused. It's useless to even use the engine here. This is insane. Well, if you have a strong computer with a very fast processor, it'll blow me away. My computer, I need to get, that's our next like project, to raise money for a real computer. Sladgie can analyze more accurately. Anyway, move 11, great game. Knight takes g2, and that's game over? No, he played knight f3. No. It was knight takes g2, resigns. Obviously, rook g1 is made in 1. So the only serious possibility here is bishop takes g2, which loses. Man, that's just devastating. What's white supposed to play? Bishop g4, I mean... Knight takes c8. It's just over. Queen h4 check, king g1. Knight e3 check. And then we just take everything. Bishop g4, rook takes g4, queen g4, queen g4, king moves, and queen g2 mate. Yeah, that's brutal, man. Very nice game. I mean, I feel like I might have seen it before. It's a classic Kings Indian smash up. Sumeher. Sumerian. Alright, let's see. Studies. Did you get my game yet, sir? Did you do my game yet? Yeah. Sire. How many beers did you have to drink tonight? You guys see all my secret studies here. This is the top secret laboratory. Alright. Sladgie Analysis stream. And we got major lag kicking in. 511 ping? Why am I getting 511 ping? What's going on around here? Oh, we're just in time. Sumahair. Did I miss anybody? We're going to have to say goodbye soon. We didn't get as many games as usual this week, but I spent more time on the games that we did have, you know, so. This is Sumahair. Your esteemed opponent with very serious opening here, e5. Honestly, maybe like d6 is the best try. But, nah, it doesn't matter. I mean, if d6, I would just play knight f3. But the England Gambit is really bad. So knight c6, knight f3, and then... Yeah, I mean, you ought to play just like d6 here. But I like bishop g5. Is there a problem, officer? I can't believe, like, black drew 2 games here. This is seriously dubious. f6? I think the move is like, is it f6? Bishop h4? If f6, do we go here? That can't be right. We have to take and we transpose to like a good black Mardimer with like 2 extra tempi or something. But I just wanted to point that out. Like, a lot of people will play d6, and I think bishop g5 looks good. I don't like speeding up their development, honestly. You got real games here. I mean, Sanal from Turkey, Mestrovic played this with black. A Curious Mountain Crawler, you submitted a game. Did you send it to me? You gotta send me the game via message here on Lichess. Or get it to me somehow. I love mountain crawlers. What's your account name? Under what account? I hate Queen e7. This Queen e7 is just garbage. I don't know. Oh, okay, I got it. Okay. Yeah. It's in there. Cool. Thanks for reminding me. I thought it was just like fan mail or something. Alright, I get lots of fan mail. Or random questions. I didn't realize you were submitting a game. Thanks for being a subscriber. Thanks to Move11 for gifting subs this week. Anyways, alright, Queen e7. This is the crappy line. So in this position, my preference, Sumer, is to play this. The line that you played is good too, but I like just simply knight c3. I mean, you just... This is so brutal. Knight e5. Knight d5. Knight takes f3 check. G takes f. And now, like, you know, people blunder. They like to blunder like that. Trap. Black has to play queen d8. Dude, I mean, I take this position any day. I have better control of the center. I have, like, at least a tempo or two. I mean, I can castle queenside with, like, e4. Actually, what's wrong with e4 in this position? I mean, I like white here. I think white has a very strong advantage. What's the edge? Plus 0.9. It's funny though, like, no one played the simple e4. e4, c6, knight c3, and we just set up like bishop e3, queen d2, castle queenside. It looks like a really good attacking formation for white. I don't see how black is even remotely close to a good position here. So I think this is just the simplest thing to do. But your line is known, right? You played like bishop f4 defending the pawn. So if we check the Lichess opening explorer, d6 has been played in 3,000 games. Apparently, like, this is black's best move, according to the engine. But this is dubious. Queen b4 check, obviously. Bishop d2 here. And of course, in the famous game like Steven Zierk versus Amon Hambleton, like Hambleton sacked his queen, like he was on Chess Bra or something. This is like ridiculous, you know. I mean, 17,000 games where this has been played. It's not good for black. It's one thing you're playing like 1 minute chess, but I mean in a serious game. So, yeah, I mean, the guy was just insane. Biro Shendor played this back in 1996. Radmila Kovacevic. The Hambleton game is the only game where like a relatively good player has ever played this for black. I mean, it's crazy. What's up with knight b4? Is it knight d4? You can also play rook c1, but apparently this is important. This is an important move to know. If you play rook c1, see, this is like why I don't play this, because there's like these weird, tricky continuations. If you play rook c1, black is okay. Wow. You have to know to play knight d4 in this position, for example. It's funny. And black won the one game where this was played unbelievably. c6. White played e3. He's plus 4.8. I don't know, man. It's simpler to play the other line. But okay, if you like it, then do it. It's fine. Bishop b4, rook b1, and the guy played queen a3. So this is like better than Hambleton's line. I guess queen a3 is black's best move. So the engine says knight to d5, but obviously like Sumaher doesn't know, you know, the 8th or 9th move of the stupid gambit, you know. But rook b3 is apparently a good move. Queen a5. I mean, maybe there's another move. I mean, it kind of makes sense this queen is out of play here. So knight d5, bishop takes d2, queen d2, king d8. This was played, queen g5 check. And if you find yourself in the database having played this position with black, you should probably go visit a psychiatrist. Alright. Highly dubious at best. Rook b3, queen a5, a3. Bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3. So this guy, you know, he knew what he was doing. Now this is a new move. There's probably 20,000 games in the Lichess Opening Explorer. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, it has like a cult following. Oh, this is so sick, man. There are 15,000 games where this position has been played on Lichess. And literally 2. Online, 15,000 games. Over the board, 2. It's like a cult opening, man. I'll explain why. Because the England Gambit it's basically the ultimate bullet opening. When you play d4, e5, this is the ultimate bullet opening. You just like make a move that attacks the other guy's pawn and makes him think for a second, you know. So you just keep playing moves like that. The first players I saw that were really good at bullet were often like specializing in this kind of thing, but it loses its value in longer time controls. That's why there's like a million games. They're all bullet games, like 99% of them. So bishop takes, queen a4, novelty, dubious. But, you know, it makes sense. He has this. Apparently, the real experts here would play queen c5. Now, the one thing I did notice was that Argentine guy, Damian Lemos, who's a grandmaster now, he actually had an over-the-board game in this position. Who would have thunk it? He was 2,200 back in 2004, the year I moved here. He's sending emails to Astrobate all the time, trying to get him to buy stuff from his website. Alright, but A4, it's a new move. Queen A4, E3. Turn off the engine. And now black just voluntarily played Queen G4. You gotta kind of ask yourself, hello? This became a theme a little bit later. But what about now, Sumahara? You're threatening E6, right? So this move is possible, though. You would think like black would play that. I would play knight E7. You got to develop your freaking pieces, man. Maybe B6 is another idea. No, he can't. He has to play knight E7, so this E6 isn't so strong. But he played this. But that move doesn't develop the pieces. Now it's funny. He took the pawn on B2, and now he takes the pawn on G2. So this was like an artistic game. How often do you see queen takes B2, queen A3, queen A4, queen G4, queen G2, queen H3? I mean, I honestly, I don't think I've ever seen that happen in a game. The same queen took both pawns on like B2 and G2. But what about, the old-fashioned E6? That queen is a hoe. Rook G7. I mean, E6 looks really strong, dude. See, there's a problem. It's a double threat. There's bishop takes G7, winning a rook. But there's also pawn takes pawn check, forking black's pieces, and then winning his queen with knight G5. So how does black exactly navigate this? I guess he has one move, right? He can play knight F6. Knight F6. And then, he doesn't take back. He plays king F8. Oh, this is so sick. I'm just waiting for some kind of crazy move here. Rook takes G7. I don't believe this works. It works. I don't even know how I know that that works. But I guess it's like, you just suck him out to F6 and something good happens. You guys know how this move even works? I'm just, guessing. Rook G7, King G7, Bishop F6 check, King takes. Oh, of course, Queen A1 check. Is that a problem? It took me a while to find it. It's so rare that you get to play like Queen A1 check on the long diagonal, though. Isn't the England Gambit a great thing? Yeah, man. It's over, dude. It's all about Queen A1. So, I mean, technically you might be able to play like Queen A1 directly. Richard Reti would be like really proud of this. Oof. I was like, how do I get on the diagonal? Oh yeah, A1. Okay. Not commonly available. So after Queen H3, Sumahara just played the routine Rook takes G7. Now you've got Rook takes F7 if you want to. But he played E6, D takes E6, and then Rook G3. Very, businesslike. And he just took his rook. Black tries to trap the bishop, but we're too fast. And then the ice cold queen g4. It's getting a little murky. Check. But when our rook is hanging, by the way. You got rook takes g6 for me? Rook takes g6. He should have played queen takes g6, I guess. But I mean, at the end of the day, he's just like down a piece, so it doesn't matter. Here. And that's beautiful. Check. Oh no. Flawed victory. Queen h6, threatening bishop h5. Oh my god. He missed it. He missed it. He's got to find another defense here. Wow. Such a cheapo artist. Uber Driver's proud of you, though. The position is unclear, and black hung his queen with bishop e6. To be honest, Sumaher was fair. He said in his analysis, in his submission, when he submitted, he said it was something like really high quality game. He was joking about it. He knew it wasn't like, perfect. Black was determined, but a nice victory against a 2490 blitz player for Sumaher. So at least I'm not the only good player he's taken down. All right, guys. Last game is a submission here from Rolando's Chess. Curious Mountain Clawer, can you analyze? Yes. All right. What is this time control? We'll see. Analysis. Oh, this is actually a correspondence game. Wow, draw. Alright, Relentless Chess is black. Guys, I gotta go after this. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Mr. Coffee for being our moderator. Art Vega, Mr. Coffee donating 1,500 bits this week to the stream. Much appreciated, sire. Alright, last game. Rolando's Chess is black. Our first game we've seen from them. Arguably, like, d5 is black's best move against knight f3. It makes a lot of sense. I'm always sad to see it. g3, and then c5. So this is aggressive. I mean, it depends on your repertoire. I think it's, like, safer, the safest thing to do is, like, c6 and the bishop g4 Tory attack style stuff. You can also just play a lot of different things. I mean, it depends on your repertoire. But c5, you're trying to be white, which is aggressive. My favorite way to play this with white is like bishop g2, but it's also interesting to consider d4. Trying to open the position in the center. Theoretically, c takes d4, bishop g2, not taking the pawn back right away. There's a lot of interesting stuff here. White tries to open it up because he's first to move and then slightly ahead in development. But this move is okay. You're really happy to see that. This move is not a problem. Now you're happy you played d5 and c5, knight c6, bishop g2, and now e5 classical king's Indian with colors reversed. I have no problem with this move. Yeah, that's weird. No, I mean, I guess... What was the move order? Knight f3, d5. That is odd. Alright, e5. We just got a reverse king's Indian. Bishop e7. It's very hard for white to use this extra tempo in such a closed position. Actually, John Watson talks about that in his book on chess strategy. I don't remember its title. I never remember anything, but, you know, Watson talks about, maybe it wasn't Watson, I'm lying. It wasn't Watson. Sorry, take it back. It was Yermolinsky wrote a book on chess strategy where he talks about how the extra tempo, it tends not to be that valuable in a lot of openings with colors reversed. You'd think like, oh wow, the King's Indian would be so much better with an extra move. It's actually not that much better. White's sharpest move here is probably the Benoni, like c4. Obviously e4 is playable, knight c3 is playable, there's a lot of playable moves. But c3 is lame. This is lame. But it's okay, you can do what you want. You like white, you have an extra tempo. Now, you're reminding me of my old friend Alexander Wojtkiewicz, and a game I also played against the Grandmaster with black, where you can do like c3, bishop g5. I had a game with Glazerov, the Glacier, knight a3, knight d2, knight a3, c2. You might even play like knight a3, knight c2, knight e3. You try to fight for control of d5 with white. Bishop g5 is a way of fighting for control of d5 in a roundabout way. Theoretically, you're playing a bishop g4 King's Indian with colors reversed. c3 not the most aggressive version of it, but I think like bishop e6 here is more accurate. I mean, if White's game is about fighting for control of d5, like bishop on g5 taking out knight on f6, thus fighting for control of d5, we should play bishop e6 first. You also had the possibility of playing knight g4, knight g8, and trading dark square bishop for dark square bishop. So if I'm white here, I'm not playing knight on bd2. I think white should play maybe this or knight a3 with the idea of knight c2, knight e3, or knight d2, and focusing on d5. Knight on bd2 it's just kind of not connected. Now white doesn't have enough pressure on d5. This is a good move anyway. And now just exchanging the bishop for no reason. Now black is better. Now you have essentially a fianchetto King's Indian. This is a really bad move though. Like under no circumstance should you trade on f6 without provocation. Instead of playing knight on bd2, it's probably better to play knight fd7 or knight fd2, you know, this way. If you get something like here, 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 we could get a reverse Kavalek variation. I beat Wojtkiewicz one time in this sort of thing with black, with colors reversed, where I was playing the other side. Yeah. The late great Polish Latvian Grandmaster. Alright, knight on bd2, bishop e6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, e4. So he's playing this Soltis Kavalek setup, which I played myself. I had a game years ago where I was white, and I remember the idea was to play h4, like literally h4. After you close the center, we close the center, and then white plays like h4, king h2, and bishop h3, a la that Bulgarian grandmaster that played on my stream a few times. If you trade the white squared bishop off, technically like white's position is maybe like good because it's closed and black has a bad bishop or something. But unprovoked exchange on f6 is bad for white. So you play d4. Yeah, I don't think you have to play d4, but I think it makes sense. You know, it's probably the best move. So now, yeah, again, it's Andy Soltis style play with white. There's this book called Confessions of a Chess Grandmaster by the American Grandmaster Andy Soltis, and he did this basically with black. But again, I think also Andrew Martin recommended it years ago, the Kabbalek Soltis line. Fundamentally, it's tough to decide, but I think that black has the advantage in the long run. If you take and take, he's going to try to trade this white square bishop off. If he gets to trade the white square bishop off, say h4, I don't know, h6, king h2, queen d7, knight g1, with the idea of bishop h3. Maybe you can play like you go postal and play, this was a postal game, right? g5, bishop h3, g4, bishop g2, and then try to bust out with f3. I don't know. It's a very complicated line. White's basically playing, you know, like the King's Indian with white. But c4, I'm not sure. It looks like better for black. You got space, you have the two bishops. The one thing you have to be careful about is like exchanging his bad bishop off for your good bishop here. So this is a bad move. Your first bad move. I think. Interesting idea, g takes f6. Interesting it is. Extreme chess ideas for move 11. Threatening f5. Been hanging out with David Bronstein. White has to play e4. He has to play e4. And I think like if you did this, I don't know, the white squares look a little weird. Maybe it's better to do this. Yeah, it's not easy to say how black would play it. You know, you're a little slow, I think, but it is interesting. You need a strong stomach to play that. c4, b6, bad move. Okay, so we have b5 break, we have g6, bring the bishop back here. We have bishop back to e7. Try to just play it like a classical King's Indian. You can play g5 if you want to try to go crazy. You did that. You're basically playing a kind of Makaganov. But b6 is a massive waste of time. That's a very bad move. a3, and now h6. But again, I don't see the point of h6. Like if you want to play g5, maybe we don't even waste time with g. Just play like king h1 or something. Just play king h8. You know, maybe that's better. Probably black is nothing but, or wait, I want to call him black because he's playing black, but nothing better than like knight e1. I don't know if you want to risk this here because of bishop f3. Shades of Anand's game from earlier. Gotta be really careful about the white squares. So it's tricky, like what do you do now? Maybe king h8 isn't so good. Okay, there's g6, knight e1. You know, just play it like a fianchetto, I guess. What do? Bishop g7? And if white plays f4, it's not good that you weaken this diagonal here with b6. That doesn't help. You only made the position worse, essentially. I mean, if you're going to play anything, like instead of b6, you should probably consider a5. But that would make your pawns inflexible. So truthfully, it's better not to do anything. You see the white squares. This problem. Bishop f3 is a really strong move. Well, at least strong idea. I mean, I guess you could stop that. He might have to go here. Should white play bishop f3 or f4? Yeah, it's unclear. I mean, white's going to play f4. So it's a tempo. But I'm not sure about the final analysis, you know, this looks kind of dangerous. Oh, you mean with the knight still on f3? Wow. What? Like here? Oh, that's weird. Like bishop g5? It's the Sveshnikov. You could play that. I mean, it's totally a move, but I'm thinking like f4, f5 is pretty annoying. You'd have to take. White would take with the pawn. Yeah, I mean, you're gambling here. The real danger is that this could be very disruptive, sort of f5, f6. But it would be complicated to answer that question. There's a lot of interesting stuff, you know. I think that black has a good position, but you got to be very precise how you do this. Like, probably the simplest thing is bishop e7. And then we'll see. Knight e1. We want to set up a blockade. I guess rook c8. Do you take, or do you play like f6 and just let him play f5? Because ultimately he has no dark square bishop. Alright, anyway, like g5 is pretty weakening, but you can get away with it. Instead of, this is funny, move 11 or someone I worked with recently made the same mistake. It wasn't you, move 11? You should put your king, it was a different one of my students. You should put your king on g7 here, probably. Not h7. I mean, difficult to judge. I'm not sure, actually. I feel safer on the dark square, but I understand that you're concerned the g-file is going to open up. I wish chess positions were easy to analyze. So it's basically a Makaganov system in reverse. But black played well. Black's winning. Yeah, you're just winning. I mean, this is just winning. So, I mean, after f4 pawn takes pawn, he can't take the pawn. He can play it as a pawn sacrifice, maybe, but this square is really huge. What about e5? Does white have something crazy here with e5? You're going to kill him, right? Knight takes e5. Sack the exchange. Ooh, this is brutal. Or g8. All of black's pieces are just monstrous. The queen is trapped with, like, bishop g4. It's a disaster. Wow. Yeah, he can't do that. So white's got to be careful here. What does the computer want to play? G takes f4, e takes f4. Oh, g takes f4, rook g8. Wow. I thought your move was good. e5, I can't believe this works. The computer says it works. Knight takes. Oh, there's no bishop takes a8. He has to play bishop here. Check. See, I told you should have played king g7. Unbelievable. And you're still better. Yeah. He collapses on the dark squares and loses the exchange. This is just a tactically winning position. I mean, honestly, like, you were a little bit fancy here. Couldn't you play bishop takes f2 check? Wow, this doesn't work? Are you serious? Wow. Bishop takes f2 isn't winning. White's actually better here. Oh my god, this was a correspondence game. So you had like a lot of time to analyze. We're usually analyzing, you know, maximum classical, not correspondence. So that's cool. Rook g8, king f1. Now you take, and now bishop takes c6, double question mark. He could have played bishop b4 check. That thing crops up again, where he does an intermezzo. You'd have to play like what, rook g6 or something, or king g7, obviously. And maybe white has some chances here. So this is a blunder. Rook g5. Queen f3, rook c8, double question mark. You have rook f5, bishop e4. Check first. Check first. Check first. Here. Rook g5. No, I don't think that matters. Right. Well, I mean, I think there's a problem. Maybe like simply bishop e3. There's this huge threat of rook g1 and like bishop g4 maybe. So if you take this, I have rook g1 here and bishop g4. I was wondering about this. Or I might be like missing an even better move. But hypothetically, this is good enough. Yeah. That's the point. I think that's an important point. You got like check and then king e2 and bishop g4 skewering his queen. So instead you played this. And then f5. I guess king h8. King h8 was the best try. f5 takes. I mean, this was a really like blunderful game, but you know, strategically you outplayed your opponent pretty badly. It's just about the tactical details. The strategic concept in the opening was very good. Looks like you're losing now. I don't think there's anything you do to save the game at this point. You're down a piece. But he perhaps blunders. You're just down too much material. Very little chance of a comeback here. White would have to make a catastrophic blunder. And actually this is very smart, you know, going over the other side. A totally weird move. It's a pawn. I mean, I would get my king to safety, first priority. Maybe king d2. I like b5 though. What are you supposed to do? I mean, you have to do something. b5 is a good move, fundamentally, like in a losing position. And now he loses a piece back. That pawn is actually really strong now. I could see a situation where it might not be that easy. He has a strong knight here. If your pawn on a7 falls, I'm not even sure about the endgame. Now what? It feels like white's actually better at this point, objectively. I like playing correspondence games. Although I haven't played any in a while. Oh man. This could be very dangerous. I can't believe he doesn't trade queens here, but your h pawn's too fast. So if he trades queens and goes after your a pawn, I don't have a clue. I guess it's just a tad too slow. Your H pawn might be just a tad faster than that B pawn. It's really not easy to judge. This is not a given, you know. I wouldn't have been 100% sure. The computer has to like play perfectly to win that. Right? Can we just agree to a draw already? Alright, it is. Yeah, I mean, crazy game. It was so good for black, though. You played the opening really well. And I think you were winning by nature of the dark squares earlier. But things got out of control when it got very complicated tactically. Ultimately, black should have been winning. You know, white's king was in trouble. But I mean, you know, there's this quote that tactics is like 90% of the game. I don't agree with that. You know, I think that's a complete lie. I don't remember. Maybe Soltis made that quote. You know, the tactics is like 90% of chess or whatever. But I think tactics is realistically like 40% of chess or something. But it's still an important part, you know. Important part of the game. And strategically, black played pretty well. But, you know, without tactics, you can't play a good game. Alright, guys, it's late for me. I gotta go. We're gonna be back tomorrow morning with Rapid Challenges, usual time. I will be also doing a simul on Sunday, as I do every week. Thanks, Move11, Mr. Coffee, Art Vega, all of you, for submitting your games. I will be back Friday and Sunday, so usual schedule. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will never forget you. And I'm going to drop a raid here for Tranquilizer, because he's online now. Our good friend, GM_Tranquilizer. Take care, everybody.